can't get my fringe to sit right. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I'm going to take you through what have been the top books of 2020 for me so far. As of today, I have read 56 books already in 2020, which has given me quite a big selection that I can choose from. Let's take a look at what some of those books were. So, book number one that I'm going to speak to you about is The Places I've Cried in Public by Holly Bourne. Holly is one of my absolute favourite authors. I have read almost everything by her, bar one, which is still on my TBR. It's Pretending. You can see it right there. This is her most recent YA book, and it's about a girl called Amelie who has recently broken up with her boyfriend called Reese, and she's kind of looking back on the relationship and realising this wasn't the best relationship that she's ever been in. It's actually been quite emotionally abusive. And her friends have been kind of alienated from her because all she can think about, all she can talk about, all she is doing is hanging out with this guy. He's all she can think about. He's all she can talk about. But he's not a very nice person. So she has just recently moved to this new town, and the people who've grown up there have told her that Reese isn't a very good guy. But she's kind of going against all of that and is just like, I'm going to date him anyway and figure it out for myself, which I kind of respect. But if somebody tells you that someone's bad news, maybe pay attention to them. This book did not exactly make me cry because I don't cry very easily at books, but it is a very emotive book, and I think everybody in the world has a Reese, has a relationship that you kind of look back and you realize you were just viewing it through rose-tinted glasses at the time. If you have such a relationship, this book will definitely be an eye-opener for you. One of the books this year that I read on audiobook was Becoming by Michelle Obama, and I absolutely adored it. I had always been pretty much Camp Obama throughout any of the presidential campaigns, and I was a big supporter of him during his time. I know that there are some kind of shady bits about his presidency, but as a whole, I was very much Team Obama. And I loved Michelle's book, Becoming. It is all about her life as a child, growing up on the south side of Chicago, growing up in like this tiny house with her parents and her brother Craig and her aunt and her uncle, who all lived shared 2 stories of a house together, and she was learning piano from her aunt, which I thought was really cute. And then going off in her education at Harvard and getting her law degree, working in a law firm in Chicago where she met an intern called Barack Obama, and the rest is kind of history from there. And it also talks to us about her experiences of Barack's presidential campaign, his presidential race, how it was like the nights that he was elected, what it was like in the actual White House. There's one chapter that describes a dream that Michelle had where a petting zoo was brought into the White House, and they were told that all of the animals had been kind of tranquilized, so it was fine, but Sasha kept going towards a cheetah or a tiger, and then the animals started charging at Sasha and Michelle, and then she woke up in like a pool of sweat, which I really struggled to find how much I loved this book because it's so emotive, and Michelle is such an amazing storyteller, and having her voice actually tell you her story really, really adds to the book. It is a book that I absolutely recommend that you read as an audiobook rather than through a physical copy, because having her tell you her actual story is just fantastic. I also really, really loved American Royals by Catherine McGee. It's the first of Catherine's books that I've read, but I don't actually think that this is her debut. I think she has another either standalone or a series already, but the second book of this is coming out in September, and I am on tenterhooks until it comes out. So this follows a kind of alternate history timeline, in that George Washington wasn't given a presidency, he was actually given a throne. So now all of George Washington's descendants are kings, and Beatrice is in line to become the first queen regnant rather than the queen consort. And it's kind of preparing her for her life as the queen, as the ruler of the country. And so while she is in training to become the queen regnant, she has to find a prince consort who will sit beside her while she's on the throne, and who will sit with her and basically be the love of her life. So quite a lot of the book describes her having to find her suitor, but her sister has fallen in love with her suitor, and Beatrice has fallen in love with her bodyguard. And then there's also her brother Jefferson, who has fallen in love with their other sister Samantha's best friend, but Jefferson's ex-girlfriend Daphne is also there, and she's really jealous, and she wants to get back into the court because she's kind of become accustomed to the life that gives you.
Boy, drama.
If you really like The Crown, and if you really like Gossip Girl, and if you really like drama, you are really going to like this book. And I adore drama. I really, really liked Gossip Girl, and as much as it pains me to admit, I did enjoy watching The Crown. This was definitely the book for me, and it left on such a cliffhanger. I have to get Majesty into my hands right now. The rest of the books that I kind of really enjoyed, I read them all on my Kindle. I have done so much Kindle reading this year. So the first one that I'm going to talk to you about is Beach Reads, which I also talked about in a video recently. So you can find a little bit more of an in-depth review up there. Beach Reads is about two writers, one called January and one called Augustus, who also goes by the name of Gus. And they're both living side by side in two beach condos. January has come down to the beach condo because her dad has recently passed away, and she has to kind of clean it out so that it can go back on the market for a while. It's going to be sold. She's also taking this as like kind of an opportunity for her to put together her manuscript that she can send to her publishers, because they're kind of on her back about it. Gus is living in the one next door, and he's also having a little bit of writer's block. So the two of them have an idea that they're going to swap ideas. They're going to kind of swap the genres that they usually write about. So January is a little bit more of a chick lit writer. She writes a lot of romance reads, and Gus writes a lot of thrillers and literary fiction where people kind of end up dead at the end of the book. So they have the idea to swap manuscripts, and they also go out and kind of research each other's genres and research each other's ideas. It's a really, really great book. It has some really, really great and happy and exciting moments, but there is also a little bit of heartbreak in it with the chapters where January talks about her dad and her relationship with her father. This book genuinely did leave me in tears, and that doesn't happen quite a lot, so you know that that is a good book. Another book that left me in tears, and that genuinely hadn't happened in a long time, was Norton Crosses by Mallory Blackman. It's the first in the Norton Crosses series. For some reason, I also have just book 5, which is Crossfire, and none of the other books. Norton Crosses follows another alternate reality where white people are the oppressed and black people are the oppressors. So we follow Callum, who is a white person who is also known as a Naught. We follow Sephi, who is a black person and is also known as a Cross. And the two of them have known each other since childhood. Callum's mother was actually the nanny for Sephi's family. And Callum and Sephi fall in love, and their love is really, really ill-fated, and it's really, really star-crossed. Heartbreaking is the one word that comes to mind when I think about this book. The ending, if you have read this, you will know why it left me in tears, and I can't stop thinking about it. A book that's maybe a little bit happier, and another one that I have talked about in another video, is the On Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I read this book in about a day and a half. I could not put it away. So the On Honeymooners follows Olive, and her sister Amy is probably the luckiest person in the world. She could just look at a lottery ticket and win $1 million off it. Amy is getting married one day to a guy called Dane. They have won their wedding buffet, and as part of the wedding buffet, it's an actual hands-on buffet but with a lot of shellfish. Olive doesn't eat any of the shellfish because she is allergic to it, and Dane's brother Ethan doesn't eat the buffet because he's against buffets, because he thinks they're really unsanitary. So they are the only two people at the entire wedding who don't get food poisoning. And because everybody else got food poisoning, including the bride and groom, Amy and Dane can't go on their honeymoon, which they've also won, which takes place in Maui, in Hawaii. So Olive goes in the guise of her twin sister Amy. And Ethan goes because there wasn't a first name given on the booking, it was just Amy and Mr. Thomas. So the two of them absolutely despise each other. They have clashed heads ever since their siblings got together. And now you have a feeling that's what's going to happen at the end of the book, but there are so many tropes that you get in while you're there. There's only one bed. Absolutely loved that trope. And there is a massage scene, maybe 50-60% of the way through the book. You're going to need a cold shower after that, and you're definitely going to need to sit down. It was one of the best romance scenes I've ever read. And so the final book that I'm going to talk to you about is Tweep Cute by Emma Lord. I read this back in like February or so, and it wasn't really comfort food season by then because the weather was kind of starting to get a little bit brighter and a little bit warmer. I instantly went and made tomato soup and cheese toasties for like a week after reading this book. You follow two teenagers, a girl called Pepper and a guy called Jack. Pepper has recently moved to New York from Tennessee, and Jack has grown up in New York City. And both of their families own like fast food companies. Jack's family owns a diner in New York City, and Pepper's family owns a kind of a diner chain, which is starting to go across the U.S. So Pepper's mother moves to New York so that she can be at the head of the franchise and watch everything that's happening. But Pepper and Jack run the family's social media accounts and run like their Twitter accounts, and they kind of run a Twitter war against each other about family recipes that do have really big similarities. And what they don't know is that there is another social media app in just their school that gives you an like an anonymous tag, which is all based on like animals. So you could be like a birdie or a wolf or a tiger or a puma or whatever. The two of them are talking on this app, and they have no idea that they're talking to each other because their anonymity hasn't been compromised yet. It's a really, really cute, slow burn romance with so many food references. It was the perfect book for me. I really, really loved it. I cannot wait to see what else Emma Lord has to bring out. And one day on this channel, I am going to attempt to make Monster Cake. Hold me to that. So those were some of the best books that I have read in 2020 so far. Have you read any of those, and do we have similar opinions? Or do you have any other opinions on these books that I've read? Or tell me what your best book so far in 2020 was. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now get on out of here.